To be or not to be, that is the question. Or translated to modern English, what's the point of life? What kind of video game is this supposed to be? The game devs just throw you into this world at a random spawn point with random character stats, and they don't even tell you what the objective of the game is. No tutorial, no pause button, no restart button, and you only get one life. Is this game winnable at all? Or should we just toss our controllers at the TV and give up? People have been trying to figure out the meaning of life since the beginning of time. Back in the days when religion reigned supreme, it seemed like the problem was solved. The point of life was to serve God and secure a good spot in the afterlife. If you wanted to live your afterlife in happiness and luxury, you just needed to follow the rules and rituals and be a good person to have your spot reserved in heaven. Otherwise, if you wanted to spend eternity with all the cool and interesting people, you just needed to break a few rules to secure your spot in hell. In either case, at least you felt like there was a point. There was meaning and purpose behind your actions. It was all working towards creating heaven on earth, or enlightenment, or breaking out of the cycle of karma, or something like that. But then some German guy killed God, and now there's no one to hand out meaning to us. It's always some German guy with a mustache who ruins everything. Religion just doesn't hit the same anymore. So now we have a crisis of meaning where no one knows what they're supposed to be striving towards. Many philosophers of the last few hundred years have tried to solve this crisis, but one hot French guy had a very unique solution that's worth exploring. His name is Albert Camus, and his philosophy is called Absurdism. If we're judging philosophers by how their life philosophy reflected in their actual quality of life, then Albert Camus is definitely a guy you want to listen to. He had great fashion, lots of women, was a skilled football player, and was overall happy and very passionate about life. And he didn't just have mindless fun. When France was invaded during World War II, he joined the French resistance, serving as editor-in-chief for a banned newspaper. On top of all that, he wrote novels, plays, and essays, winning the Nobel Prize in Literature at age 44, becoming the second youngest recipient in history. All that to say, whatever philosophy this guy came up with is probably worth learning about. So let's dive into absurdist philosophy, which will absolutely solve all of your life problems, or your money back guaranteed. As humans, we have a natural desire for meaning and for things to make sense. We look to the world expecting it to give us some kind of meaning, but it has nothing to offer us. Hey universe, remember that time that you gave me consciousness so I could appreciate the world around me? Remember the time you made it sunny outside so I could enjoy a day at the beach? Remember when I almost died but you gave me the split-second instinct to swerve right instead of left? Remember when you helped me get that job I always wanted? Remember when you made me fall in love for the first time? Hey universe, did any of that mean anything to you? Hey universe, what are we? Why did you give me all of these seemingly meaningful experiences, but you won't tell me what the point of it all was? Why are you like this? This tension between our desire for meaning and the universe's lack of meaning creates a feeling that Camus calls the absurd. Absurdity is when you have a severe mismatch between two things. If you see a guy with a kitchen knife try to go up against a battalion of soldiers with machine guns, you'd call that an absurd situation. If a guy is riding his bicycle to work like he does every day, but a grand piano falls in his head, that's pretty absurd. Likewise, the relationship between humans and the universe is absurd because we are beings that crave meaning, and the universe is extremely indifferent and quite frankly does not give a damn. We're showing the universe all of our vulnerability, telling it our life struggles and desires, and hoping that it shows us just a tiny ounce of empathy to make it all make sense. And the universe simply says, I ain't reading all that. The universe is ghosting us, right when we needed her the most. We're like Tantalus, a character in Greek mythology whose punishment is to stand in a pool of water beneath a fruit tree. Whenever he reaches for the fruit, the branches move away from him so he can't grab them. Whenever he bends down to get a drink, the water moves away so he can't get any. That's our toxic relationship with the universe. It feels like we're so close to finding meaning, but it always eludes us. It's always right around the corner. It'll always be there in 5 minutes, but it never arrives. We live most of our lives on autopilot, so we rarely ever encounter the absurd. The moments we do encounter it are completely random. You can be doing your typical 9-to-5 grind, waking up in the morning, getting ready for work, doing your commute, listening to podcasts, going to meetings, scrolling through TikTok, watching a video essay on YouTube while eating dinner, and then out of nowhere you suddenly wake up for a moment. This is your encounter with the absurd. After that, we either gradually return to autopilot or have a definitive awakening where we demand an answer and won't go back to sleep until we have one, also known as an existential crisis. Usually, we're sitting in a boat, sailing through the stream of time. We don't have to do anything because time is carrying us forward. But when you wake up, time stops carrying you, and you need to carry it. Time clocks out of its job and makes you do all the work. You need to row hard to keep moving forward. You are the captain now. So what are we supposed to do when we wake up and realize that we're face to face with the absurd? Well, you could just completely ignore it and go back to the autopilot life. Turn on the TV and escape the problem. Like, yeah, life has no meaning. Anyway, next TikTok please. But that's just kicking the can down the road. You'll keep waking up to the absurd reality again and again until you find a real solution. The most common response to the absurd, and what a lot of other existential philosophers do, is to huff some serious copium by taking what Camus calls a leap of faith. Instead of staying with the absurd and trying to deal with it somehow, they leap to a solution that has no basis in logic. They say that life is absurd, therefore there must be some greater transcendental reality out there that's beyond our comprehension. The world is absurd, therefore God is real. They take a leap of faith to regain a sense of coherent meaning and purpose. Life would be a lot easier, and all of our problems with meaning would be solved if God existed, so let's go with that. God isn't the only leap of faith though. Anything that you come up with to give you a sense of meaning is a leap of faith. Money could become your meaning, and you wake up every day trying to make more money and achieve financial freedom. Social status could become your meaning, and you try to get the right job, drive the right car, and buy the right house to look good to the people around you. Your parents' approval could become your meaning, and you wake up every day trying to fulfill their expectations as best as you can. Nationalism could become your meaning, and you dedicate your life to giving it all for the glory of your country. Climbing ranked in League of Legends could become your meaning, and if so, then God help you. It could be all kinds of things. There's no shortage of copium and hopium dealers in this world. Everyone's looking to sell you a solution to that feeling of the absurd. Convincing yourself of some belief system that gives your life meaning is taking a leap of faith. It's injecting yourself with hope. Even if it's a meaning of life that you came up with for yourself, you're still escaping instead of dealing with the reality that there is no meaning. Camus isn't judging anyone for doing this. It's what most people do to find motivation and maintain their sanity. He's just wondering if there's a solution to this problem that doesn't require taking a leap of faith. Nothing wrong with taking a few shots of meaning every day. But what happens if you don't? Is there a way to live where you stay with the absurd instead of running away? The answer is yes. Screw meaning. Meaning is overrated. We don't need that garbage. I don't know whether this world has a meaning that transcends it, but I know that I do not know that meaning, and that it is impossible for me just now to know it. What can a meaning outside of my condition mean to me? I can understand only in human terms. Not only do we not need meaning, but life is lived even better without meaning. We won't beat the absurd with meaning, but by living a life of revolt. Instead of running away from the absurd, you maintain constant awareness of it. Hold it close, hug it tightly, and stare deeply into its eyes as you go live your life anyways. This is living a life of revolt. You stare into the void, and the void stares into you, but you don't run away. You keep staring until it cries. Living life as an absurdist is a permanent revolution. It's maintaining this constant confrontation. In the same way that facing danger makes us more aware and present, facing the absurd like this makes us feel more alive. The absurdist is always going to be tempted and offered the opportunity to take a leap of faith. There's a lot of drug dealers out there looking to get you hooked on meaning, trying to sell you the latest new religion or meaning or life purpose. You have to persist in the revolution and say no to all of these temptations in order to live as an absurdist. All those people who stray from the path and take a leap of faith are heretics. Stand strong, soldier. Do not follow in their footsteps. That revolt gives life its value. Spread out over the whole length of a life, it restores its majesty to that life. To a man devoid of blinders, there is no finer sight than that of the intelligence that grips with a reality that transcends it. The sight of human pride is unequaled. The revolt against the absurd is an inner battle. It isn't necessarily about changing your external actions, but your attitude towards life. The absurd is his extreme tension, which he maintains constantly by solitary effort, for he knows that in that consciousness and in that day-to-day revolt, he gives proof of his only truth, which is defiance. As humans, we lack complete freedom. Death is coming for us at some random time, and we don't have the freedom to stop that from happening. But we do have freedom of thought and action. The absurd gives us this freedom. Having a meaning for your life or a God-given purpose makes you a slave to that meaning or purpose. You adapt your life to the role of the doctor or the engineer, or whatever it is that you believe you're supposed to be. You might be stuck at a job you hate because you followed this path. You might end up finding your meaning in making more money, or making your parents proud, or making your friends envious. Meaning is a constraint that you create for yourself. It's like locking yourself in a prison. You become a slave to the future. As an absurdist, by not having any meaning or purpose, you gain true freedom. You can start over and redefine your own life. You never have to live in any pre-prescribed, society-approved way. There is no hope. There is no future. And that's why you're free. Spiritual and religious people find freedom in losing themselves in their God and their beliefs. By constraining themselves, they gain a kind of independence. They feel free even though they have a lot of restraints. Similarly, the absurdist facing death feels released from everything else. In the face of death, we are free. Children have a lot of constraints, but they have a type of freedom that comes with not being responsible for anything. As a child, you don't have to think about bills, taxes, food, and rent because your parents are handling it. You have no worries. Death is similar. It's going to take care of everything in the end and wipe the slate clean, so it frees you up to do whatever the hell you want. We're not actually free because we can die at any moment, but within that constraint, death gives us a sense of freedom because now we don't have to take things as seriously. We don't have to think about other people's opinions and society's expectations and all of that nonsense. Death erases it. Thanks to our impending doom, we really have nothing to worry about. The most valuable thing in this absurd world is the quantity of life that you have. The longer you live, the more time you have to rebel against the absurd. So eat your broccoli and hit the gym. But quantity doesn't just mean the amount of years you live, but also the intensity of that life, the variety of experiences you have, and how present you are during those experiences to really consciously live them. Living a year on autopilot hardly counts as living. So being present and savoring the experience is important. Having a diverse variety of experiences is also a type of quantity that's worth pursuing. So go skydiving off a hot air balloon, move to a new city where you don't even speak the language, stay up until sunrise singing karaoke, get blackout drunk, gamble your life savings away at the roulette table, sneak aboard a spaceship, run for president. Reignite your passion for life, be present for every moment of it, and maintain constant awareness of the absurd. That's how you fight the good fight in this revolution. The absurd is always going to win in the end, because death is going to erase you out of existence. But do it for the glory of the battle. You can't restore meaning to your life, but you can restore your dignity by putting up a fight. Artistic creation of any kind is the ultimate absurd act. First, you have to put in a ton of hours to learn some creative craft, whether it's playing the guitar, painting landscapes, writing epic fantasy novels, or underwater basket weaving. It takes a lot of time and dedication to get good enough to produce something decent. But that's just the warm-up. That's just your training arc. After that, you have to put in even more time and efforts to create great work. And most of the stuff you create is trash, but some of it is alright, and you keep working, and eventually maybe you produce something truly great. But most likely, you'll never make anything great because most artists don't. Still, at the very least, you can eventually make stuff that you're happy with, that you're proud of, that your mom will say is the best thing ever. Well, she was probably saying that before you could even play your scales properly, but you get the point. And you're putting all of this work into something that is most likely never going to be acknowledged by the vast majority of humanity. And even if your work does become famous, you're still going to die, and your fans will die, and your work will evaporate in a long enough time horizon, and in the end, it will all be completely pointless. All that work you did is guaranteed to be a meaningless waste of time in the end. For a regular person, that's quite a depressing statement that makes you not want to bother anymore. But for an absurdist, this is the perfect motivation. Creation is the ultimate act of revolt against the absurd. Of all the schools of patience and lucidity, creation is the most effective. It is also the staggering evidence of man's soul dignity, the dogged revolt against his condition, perseverance in an effort considered sterile. It calls for daily effort, self-mastery, a precise estimate of the limits of truth, measure, and strength. It constitutes an Sisyphus. All that for nothing, in order to repeat and mark time. But perhaps the great work of art has less importance in itself than in the ordeal it demands of a man and the opportunity it provides him of overcoming his phantoms and approaching a little closer to his naked reality. The absurd creator knows that their creation is unnecessary. They don't consider their work to be some precious thing. They create the thing, then move on without attaching any importance to the results. To work and create for nothing, to sculpture in clay, to know that one's creation has no future, to see one's work destroyed in a day, while being aware that fundamentally this has no more importance than building for centuries. This is the difficult wisdom that absurd thought sanctions. Performing these two tasks simultaneously, negating on one hand and magnifying on the other, is the way open to the absurd creator. He must give the void its colors. Ultimately, a creator must remember that their work is pointless and futile, which should actually give them more freedom to create that work. If it doesn't matter at all, then you're free to create whatever crazy stupid ideas you want. So get out there and make something, just to rub it in the face of the absurd. Finally, we can talk about a character in Greek mythology that Camus considers the perfect example of an absurd hero. His name is Sisyphus. You probably already know the part where he's sentenced to push a rock up a hill forever, but there's more to him than just that. No one ever mentions this part for some reason, but Sisyphus is an absurd hero even before he gets his famous rock punishment. The river god Asopus had his daughter kidnapped by Zeus or something. You know, the gods love their ditty parties. And Sisyphus told Asopus where his daughter was, which made Zeus mad. Sisyphus was chained in Tartarus, but tricked Death into letting him out of the chains. Then he chained up Death and effectively made all humans immortal, which made the gods even more pissed off at him. When Sisyphus actually died and went to the underworld, he used his charm to convince Persephone to let him back into the real world temporarily. And of course, once he got back to the real world, he didn't want to return to the underworld. But when he had seen again the face of this world, enjoyed water and sun, warm stones and the sea, he no longer wanted to go back to the infernal darkness. Recalls, signs of anger, warnings were of no avail. Many years more he lived, facing the curve of the gulf, the sparkling sea, and the smiles of earth. A decree of the gods was necessary. Mercury came and seized the impudent man by the collar, and snatching him from his joys, led him forcibly back to the underworld, where his rock was ready for him. Can we put some respect on Sisyphus for a second? He got punished for saving a kidnapped girl from human trafficking, for making humans immortal, and for enjoying life too much. Sisyphus did nothing wrong. It's clear who the real villains are. Sisyphus is a perfectly innocent man, receiving a harsh punishment, serving as an example for us all to live by. In other words, Sisyphus is the Jesus of absurdism. Sisyphus is the absurd hero. His final punishment was to push a boulder up a hill, only to have it roll all the way back down, then repeat this cycle forever. In this endless loop, there's a moment when the boulder rolls back down, and he has to turn around and walk all the way back down to get it. In that moment, he's making the choice to go back down, and in that moment, he shows that he is superior to his fate. He's choosing to continue pushing this rock up the hill, and he does it with a smile on his face. He's conscious, he's present, he's alive. He knows it's absurd, and he's going anyway. He's a revolutionary. In the face of this completely pointless task, he's smiling and working hard. In this way, he's beating the absurd in this unwinnable battle. He's taking what should be a punishment and turning it into a fun hobby, once again trolling the gods. Could you imagine how pissed Zeus must be, seeing this man smiling while pushing his boulder up the hill for the 800 billionth time? He is the absurd hero that we should all strive to be. We're all condemned from the moment we're born. We're given a death sentence. We're guaranteed to lose the fight against the absurd. Infinite, meaningless death awaits us. But we can revolt. We can smile and be present and enjoy pushing our boulder up the hill every day, every week, every year, and we can stare at the absurd while we do it and laugh. And in this way, even though we aren't living with any meaning, we can live with dignity, taking a stand in an unwinnable war and living and dying with honor. That's the best we can strive for in this absurd world, to live our lives with passion and stare into the eyes of the void until it gets freaked out by our indomitable human spirit.